Okay, I think probably we'll start with the webinar, and after this, after my short presentation, I will pass to Mirai, and until I try to contact Carlos about it. I think it's for us to start. So here. We put this webinar together to try to have some more insight about questions of sustainability, the role of young researchers, the role of institutions such as universities. We have a broad of subjects that we really want to elaborate a little bit more on this webinar. So this webinar, I put some instructions in chat, please. This webinar, I wanna a few friends will present it. A few colleagues will gives different presentations about different perspectives. In the end, we'll have some time for questions. I will start. If you allow me, let me just share my PowerPoint with you. I think you are seeing my PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Please give me just a minute. You know, we are get used to Zoom, not Teams, but okay. I think okay. So I want to make a short presentation. After this, I will pass to Mirai. That it will be our next presenter. So good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this international webinar on universities as agents of sustainability. As we all know, sustainability has become one of the defining challenges of our century. Universities also are expected not only to produce knowledge, but also to act as a proactive agents of social, cultural, and environmental transformation. Yet, when we talk about sustainability, the focus often falls almost exclusively on technological or natural science solutions that are obviously essential, of course, but they are not sufficient. The social sciences, humanities, and arts, the subject that we are trying to understand here, play a fundamental role in helping societies to imagine, to understand, and to implement sustainability futures. They provide the ethical frameworks, the cultural values, and historical perspectives that give meaning to our actions. They teach us how ideas of nature, development, and progress have evolved over time, how cultural relationships shape environmental behavior, and how communities mobilize collective change. This is precisely where the social sciences and humanities come in, obviously, as also arts. As Stephen Sterling argued in his essential book, Sustainable Education, genuine change in higher education requires, and I'm citing, a transformative paradigm, end of citation, not just new tools. Sustainability demands that we rethink the very purpose of learning, what kind of world we are preparing students for, what kind of citizens we are forming. Humanities and social sciences help us to do that. They provide the critical, interpretive, and ethical frameworks that allow us to understand sustainability as a moral and historical process, not merely as a set of goals. Let me give you a few examples. In history, scholars like John McNeill or Kate Brown has shown us how past industrial and environmental transformations shape today's ecological crisis. Understanding these trajectories help us to recognize that sustainability is not about innovation, it is also about memory, accountability, and long-term responsibility. In anthropology, sociology, and others, a few authors call for reimagining our ways of knowing and being, recognizing multiple worldviews, especially from non-Western and local communities. These perspectives remind us that sustainability future must also be a plural and mainly an inclusive. Across all these cases, a common idea emerges that social sciences and humanities disciplines do not just study sustainability, they translate it into values, into narratives, and, more important, probably into identities. They help societies envision what sustainability life means. For instance, as author Leal Filho et al. In 2023 emphasized in a book called Sustainability in Higher Education, achieving sustainability requires a holistic approach that integrates, and I'm citing, technological, social, and cultural innovation. In other words, no real transformation can occur without the interpretative and reflective dimensions offered by the humanities and social sciences. That is why this webinar places them at the center of our discussion. These disciplines are not peripheral. They are the intellectual and ethical core of any serious attempt to build a sustainability university. Having said this, let me now turn to the focus of our meeting today. This webinar on universities as agents of sustainability. This event was conceived by part of the Virtual Mobile Grant under the Chief Cost Action, and it emerged from a simple but powerful idea that universities are not only spaces of knowledge production, but also laboratories for sustainability futures. Over the past 2 decades, there has been growing recognition that higher education institutions must assume a more proactive role in addressing the global sustainability agenda. A call clearly formed in UNESCO 2021 report, Reimagining Our Future Together, a new social contract for education. The report emphasizes that education must be transformative, that it should empower learners to imagine alternative futures and act for collective well-being. But transformation is not automatic. As Leal Filho, an author who writes extensively about the subject, reminds us in implementing sustainability in higher education, universities often face structural barriers, disciplinary silos, institutional inertia, and the tendency to treat sustainability as a technical or managerial issue rather than a cultural one. This webinar aims to challenge this perspective. It invites us to see universities themselves as living systems, dynamic institutions capable of learning, adapting, and leading social change. At the same time, it calls attention to the voices of young researchers and students who are often at the forefront of sustainability action. Across Europe and beyond, we have seen inspiring examples of student-led initiatives, from climate assemblies at the University of Amsterdam to the Green Office, a model pioneer in Maastricht, to curriculum reform projects integrating sustainability into history, design, and economics programs. These initiatives demonstrate what Bart described, and I'm citing, as the transformative potential of students as co-creators of sustainability education. They are not passive recipients of knowledge. They are agents of shaping the academic environment itself. It's in this sense, the aim of today's webinar is twofold. First, it seeks to highlight and connect diverse experience from education and heritage policy to historical teaching and research training to show how these disciplines contribute to sustainability in concrete, sometimes unexpected ways. And second, it aims to build a network of dialogue, a community of practice among young researchers, faculty members, and institutions committed to rethink higher education through the lens of sustainability. By bringing together case studies and personal journeys, this webinar reflects what Fazday et al. In 2008 in their article 10 Essentials for Action-Oriented and Second-Order Energy call, and I'm citing, co-production of knowledge, research that not only observes but also participates in transformation. Finally, this event is part of a broader effort to collect insights and experience across Europe through a short survey on the role of humanities and social science in sustainability transitions. The result will contribute to the preparation of a reflective article and a shared resource for the Shift network, ensuring that we discuss today has continued to be on this session. In a short, this webinar is not just an isolated activity. It was part of a large process of an experiment in collective learning, inspired by the idea that universities can and should lead the example in building sustainability, inclusive, and imaginative futures. So, before we begin our presentations, I would like to make a mention to recognize the framework that makes this initiative possible, the Shift Cost Action. Shift is more than a research network, it's a community of practice bridging together scholars, students, and professionals from across Europe to reflect on how universities can respond to technological, social, and cultural challenges of our time. The action was founded on the conviction that higher education institutions are not only places of knowledge transmission, but also, and I'm meaning, agents of change, catalysts for sustainability transitions within and behind the academy. As the Memorandum of Understanding of the action emphasizes, the aim is to integrate sustainability into the DNA of higher education, not as an additional task, but as a guiding principle that informs governance, teaching, and obviously research. This is what makes Shift unique among European networks. It approaches sustainability not as a purely environment issue, but as a transformative and interdisciplinary process. It seeks to build bridges between STEM and STEM disciplines and the social sciences and humanities, between technology and culture, innovation and ethics, and policy and creating. Through these working groups and grant awarding mechanisms, Shift provides a space where researchers can collaborate, exchange best practices, and experiment with new ideas. So, for not losing more time, I think we can now begin the main session of our webinar. Let me just stop my presentation. I hope you can. Okay. We can now begin the main session of our webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mirai Boga, from Iowa State University, who will open our discussion with the presentation Learning from Nature, Cultivating a Life-Centered Mindset in Design Education. She received all her degrees from the Department of Industrial Design at Istanbul Technical University, where she began her academic career as a research assistant and was later promoted to instruction. In 2023, she joined, and I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I don't know if I say it right, University as an assistant professor, and as of August of this year, she was being serving as assistant professor in the Department of Industrial Design at Iowa State University. Her main research interests focus on bio approaches in design, including bio-inspired and biophilic design. She was taught several design courses such as design thinking, critical and speculative design, and bio-inspired system design, as well as a number of design studio projects addressing environment issues from a holistic design perspective. She's currently leading a research project entitled Bio-Inspired Character and Game Design for Ecological Awareness and Environment Education. Dr. Boga is also a member of Chief Cost Action Working Groups and the Young Researchers Council. Thank you very much, Mirai. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Carlos, both for this introduction and your kind invitation. It is my pleasure to be with you all here. Good morning, everyone. I will share my, I hope I can, because I'm not familiar with the Teams interface that much.
In the top of the bar you have.
Yeah, I know, but can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Only the presentation, right?
Yes, I think yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So, hello everyone. This is Mirai, and I'm originally from Turkey. We have met some of you before at the Shift meetings. I moved to the United States 2 months ago for a position at Iowa State University, Department of Industrial Design. That's why it is dark here right now, like 4 a.m. in the morning. So excuse my poor lighting setting, no daylight yet. Today, I want to tell you about my journey in the design field, from being a designer to a design researcher and educator in relation to nature, which has always been my secret mentor throughout this journey. I'm sure you all are familiar with the profession of industrial design, but let me introduce my perspective on industrial design rather than a definition from a book. I was trained as a product designer approximately 20 years ago, focusing primarily on tangible product solutions, responding to the market gaps. Within these 20 years, almost everything has changed in this field due to the fast pace of technological developments, social changes, and the devastating consequences of the environmental crisis, of course. Now the products are intangible, like digital products, interfaces, interactions, experiences, and services to be designed. The human-centered design arose first, and more recently it has been realized that it's not only for humans, but for all types of lives should be centered. And it has become more than human. And now a novel concept is rising, which I prefer to use because it's more inclusive and comprehensive and holistic, life-centered design. I became a designer because I wanted to be many things when I was a child, and I was asked what I was going to be when I grew up. I couldn't decide what to study because I liked math, science, especially biology, but I liked literature, philosophy, and history as well. Like the people who chose acting to be able to have different characters, skills, and jobs, I decided to design to be able to deal with anything I'm interested in. So I studied bio-inspired design in my master's thesis to combine design and biology. I researched the living beings to inspire design, the case studies, and the pedagogy of it. I developed my study on how hard it is to employ bio-inspiration as a creativity method for design students due to the lack of scientific knowledge. Just before submitting my master's thesis, I met the concept of biophilia, and I was fascinated by it. I decided to study biophilic design for my PhD, and it was quite a journey for me to deep dive into the natural world more holistically and systematically. Biophilia basically means the inherent tendency of ours to nature, living beings, and lifelike processes. Biophilic design explores the user preferences rooted in ancient times, back in the Savannah era. I studied material culture, evolutionary psychology, along with design during my PhD. And nature and bio approach made my design journey as a synthesis of technical sciences and social sciences, which was satisfying for my whimsical appetite. I really enjoyed reading and researching on these topics, but the impact of it is minimal. The data gets older during the time spent in the publishing process. We are immersed in information more than we can read and digest properly. The pressure on the researchers, especially in the fields of social sciences and humanities, due to the journal metrics and institutional rankings are at the expense of research quality, is another topic of discussion. How many people would read the data I collected a couple of years ago, and when would they? In this information age, that I think it's not that very impactful. So integrating all these topics into the undergraduate design education made more sense to me in terms of the impact of the issues. So I started to design the courses in light of my research. The aim was to inject the life-centered approach into the course curricula so that the design student would embrace and incorporate it into their works. I was lucky enough to see it worked, but more importantly, they also contributed to my further design research about nature and bio approaches. Design mainly focuses on solving problems, multifaceted, full of conflict problems, but isolating a problem from its context and solving only one point is not a sustainable solution anymore. That is why another rising concept is design thinking right now. The holistic approach of design as a mediator between various stakeholders enables one to communicate on multiple levels, being adaptable to the most recent developments and creating value. Design is not the end product, but the process itself. The core of the design education is the design studio courses, which are practice-based projects applying all the knowledge acquired in all other courses. Those studio courses became a playground for me where I played with students. I feel the design for X with different themes, and I want to introduce some of them briefly with you. Design for a longer lifespan. Products have a lifespan, which has gotten shorter and shorter throughout the years. And product design is about production. That is the word. As long as we do our jobs, it will disturb the environment in a sense. So we created a framework for the studio course focusing on a longer lifespan. We gave 2 directions to the students. Design a personal care product that is emotionally engaged with the user to be used longer and easier to repair. First, we started with a metaphor of autopsy. Students disassembled a broken product and diagnosed the cause of death. And then they conducted user research to explore their personal care routines and engagements with the products. Some of the students were really resistant to doing this project. They asked this question: why would we do this project since all the companies employ planned obsolescence? If we work in these companies, we will do whatever they want. And clearly they won't ask us to design repairable products. They were absolutely right. It was really a challenge for me to convince them that there is a point to doing this project. Design is all about asking questions, asking the right questions to find the root problem. And that was a great question. And I responded with another question. How about designing a product that has a longer lifespan, convincing the producer as that is a more profitable concept? Why wouldn't this be a win-win situation? Now it's a more enjoyable puzzle to be solved rather than to make the students do a project that they don't believe in. So they designed some personal care products like an electric toothbrush, a hair dryer, and a shaver based on the user's need, and made them more accessible for maintenance. Many of them developed some repair service ideas like apps to support their product and for the company to create another path to invest in. It became a product service system. This project was conducted during the COVID-19 lockdown when some of the facilities stopped manufacturing and various service design projects and digital interfaces were designed within a very short time. Design still responds to the industry needs and market gaps. We need to be realistic about it, but how about approaching the problem as a matter of mediation, like nature does? Nature is not a peaceful or romantic place. It is wild and harsh, yet balanced and harmonic if you know what to do, how to avoid, fight, or reconcile. The bio-inspiration here is not in the form or structure of the product, but the process and the system of it was inspired by nature. Another concept was design for citizen science. Citizen science is by its nature a bio-inspirational topic. The students were expected to bring together a major in science and a group of citizens to interact, collect data, and design a product to facilitate this interaction. This was also during the pandemic, and students had to conduct research remotely. They researched for the science majors and the data types that citizens can collect. And then they conducted an ethnographic research, which is called cultural probes, to understand the motivations of the citizen group. A couple of them worked on the gardeners and farmers interacting with agriculture and climate sciences. They developed some products for measuring the leaf size, branch length, and soil depth. Some brought the travelers like hikers and climbers and some outdoor sports people with geologists and hydrologists by designing sample collectors. Throughout the process, the students engaged more with nature, even though it was during the pandemics, not only as a designer, but also as a human and a citizen. One of their feedback on the course was they noticed that their attention to nature had increased by doing this project. Another theme was design for neighborhood belonging. Many of the younger people think that sustainability is only about waste management or biodiversity. Most of them are not familiar with social sustainability and how it is effective on ecological sustainability. This project was just after the pandemic. It was the first face-to-face semester after COVID-19. The topic of building community couldn't make more sense than it does. And discussing the point of the feeling of belonging to a place in a relation to sustainability. We discussed how livable places would contribute to more balanced populations, even on small scales like neighborhoods. Each student picked a neighborhood in Istanbul, did ethnographic observations, and interviewed with the dwellers of that area and defined the problems or possibilities to create meaningful social interactions that the places, urban furnitures, applications, and services. So at the end of the project, they felt like a part of that neighborhood, even though they were not living there. Getting closer and familiarity eliminates the fear and disdain for the unknown that comes from nature, actually. It is a survival instinct to fear the unknown. Once you get closer and ensure its security, the bonding starts. So the projects also reflected the more than human approach, like the units are animal unit, plant unit, and human unit. So they acknowledged all kinds of living beings just by observing in that neighborhood. They observed that there is a connection and relation between all kinds of living beings. So this project, Design for Cultural Heritage for Sustainability, acknowledges how some of the traditional applications are more environmentally friendly than the super developed technological ones today. The students were expected to search for cultural heritages such as food preparation, heat conservation, handcrafts, traditional dance, and foraging. The aim was the sustainability of both cultural heritage and the environment. They could develop ideas to preserve and transfer the cultural heritage, but they have this major challenge relating those practices to environmental sustainability. We spent a significant amount of time, more than usually allocated, to make that connection. Because their perception of sustainability was limited to the cycle of materials or waste recycling, we discussed each SDGs to unfold the concept of sustainability beyond recycling. We decomposed each heritage with the aspects of history, culture, and stories by scanning archives and interviewing the local people. The students created system maps like each stakeholder and the network between them to see a broader context of sustainability through the cultural heritage. For example, in this one, the food waste, like corn silk, and maybe I can zoom in a bit more, yeah. Corn silk, fruit peels are collected for textile production, such as weaving and natural dyeing, which are both cultural heritages of Western Anatolia. The local women work in weaving, which is another cultural heritage, and also a part of environmental sustainability by providing employment to local people and empowering women. And there is a business model for a designer who would design acoustic panels with this textile, collecting orders through an app that allows the user to customize and apply them to the places. So these are the acoustic panels and the app interface. So it was an example of a profitable yet sustainable way of preserving the cultural heritage. Another project was about cross-stitch. Cross-stitch is a handcraft. Actually, it's not specific to Turkish culture. There are examples of cross-stitch in different cultures in Europe, even in the North America. But specific patterns for Turkish region and different regions, they have different patterns. So the student found out that cross-stitching encouraged many girls to learn to read, write, and count since they were not allowed to go to school in the past. Cross-stitch as an educational tool was really inspiring. So we discussed the corresponding concept of education today. What should be the way of education in today's curriculum? How can we benefit from cross-stitch? So it is computational thinking. Cross-stitch is an excellent example of solidifying computational thinking. So the student transformed this into a system for the children who have limited access to computational thinking. This computational thinking education is combined with an upcycling textile system. So the student had a research about it, and she imagined that a textile company has some defective garments which can be upcycled through the patterns of cross-stitch, and they can work with designers to implement those patterns to the defected parts and creating a design value. And those patterns will be created by children as a part of the computational thinking education and stitched by the local people where those children live. Thus, a system including upcycling in the textile industry and creating employment in rural areas and equal opportunity of education in rural areas too, and preservation of cross-stitch through the digitalization because of this computational thinking education. And now she is pursuing her master's project on this topic, and we have a research project together. That is one example of the cycle of teaching and research for me and how they feed each other. This was the product that she developed for the primary school students. When they learn how to read and write, they can solidify the computational thinking into reading and writing education, but it will be gradually developing throughout their education. Like in the middle school, they will learn how to create patterns and they will design their patterns. In the high school, they will learn coding based on this matrix. So I also had another course titled Bio-Inspired System Design for Ecology. The name reveals itself, but some side exercises in this course to warm up the students for the system design project and engage them more with nature became more prominent and again have become a research topic for me. One of them was a nature diary. The students were expected to pick a spot where they can observe a living being or a natural scene, like clouds, sea, a tree, seagulls on a roof, an indoor plant, etc. They watched it regularly and took notes. There's nothing different than anybody observing nature so far. However, the way they present it as a designer sparked an idea for me to search for the effects of design visualization on nature engagement. This was an example of delivering the collective data, and it hides a great deal of data analysis behind the aesthetic approach. Coding by colors, aligning with the shapes of the nature, and their notes for the spots and the temperature and the meteorological information. And also to put in a summary, as a visual summary, they needed to code all kinds of data behind it. And then you can see pictures like this, which is creating another piece of art out of nature. So another exercise was a bio-inspired character design that aims to encourage students to research nature, to equip their fictional characters more reasonably. The engagement of the students with this exercise was excellent because the reluctance to use bio-inspiration in design projects that I detected in my master's thesis has gone, and the students were surfing on the nature databases and watching nature documentaries to design some fictions. It was the fun factor then. It led me to research and develop a serious game for the younger generation based on bio-inspired character design and narrative building, which is an ongoing project right now. This was a lobster, a fictional character inspired by seahorse, and they created some relations between the species, and they created a narrative, a story, like how they were born, grew up, mate, and fight, and how they defend themselves against a predator. Those kinds of things were inspired by nature from different species, but they needed to have some research on some specific species, which make them more engaged with nature. Last but not least, I would like to talk about design for biophilia. I noted down this title after I watched Chasing Coral with Tears. Philia means love, biophilia is the love of life. Chasing Coral is about the death of coral reefs, which I have never seen before. I wish I'd seen, but I never had. So, and I was crying after something I lost. Biophilic design is a topic in literature, but design for biophilia is a more comprehensive term, including all efforts I mentioned in this presentation and more to approach from a life-centered perspective. I know it's not big enough to prevent this massive environmental crisis, but I hope it will be contagious and transform into a biophilic pandemic. Thank you for attention and patience. This is all from me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mirai. I have a few questions. Very important topics you speak about: practical implementation, beyond the classroom, interdisciplinary bridges. All these are subjects, are topics that I really like to discuss. But again, as I said in the beginning, I'm going to let the questions for the end of all presentations. But come with my 2 questions for you, Mirai. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's time now to pass for our second presentation from the Professor Carlos Manuel Faísca. His presentation is entitled From Deindustrialization to Reuse, Public Policy Perspectives from Industrial Heritage in Portugal. Carlos Manuel Faísca is an assistant researcher at the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies, guest assistant professor at the Faculty of Arts of the University of Coimbra, and president of the Portuguese Association of Economic and Social History. He holds a degree in history and a PhD in economics from the University of Extremadura. His doctoral thesis on the Iberia cork industry received the extraordinary doctorate award from the University of Extremadura, as well as the first honorable mention of the George Gelman Award, awarded by the Society for the Study of Agrarian History. Through other publications, he was awarded the Joaquim Romero Magalhães Prize by the Municipality of Lolé and the Santiago Zapata Blanco Prize by the University of Girona. His research interests include economic history, agrarian history, industrial heritage, and economic inequality. Please, Professor Carlos Faísca, you can share your PowerPoint if you want it.
You cannot hear.
You can hear me. You can hear me, Carlos. Carlos, you can hear me. You can share. You can share PowerPoint.
Okay, but you can hear me.
Yes. Now we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Because I was thinking that you did not, but you can hear me now. Very
now we can hear you. Thank you.
So we have time. You don't have to do the 100 meters. You were doing your 100 meters. Please cool down, relax. Life is beautiful. Let's talk about this. It's the first time on Teams. I don't usually.
It's not same thing as Zoom, yeah.
Yes, it's not the same thing. So I'm trying to see if I can.
Above you see share, or in your case, but perfect.
Let me just. Okay, I was trying, but well, I'm not going to be able to see you. I'm just going to talk to a screen. So if there is any technical problem, please do tell me so I can stop it and check everything. So thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. The main idea for my presentation is trying to show how can, from a social science perspective, to make a contribution to a very present problem of, I would say, most of the world. It's a problem that spreads all over the, I would say, 2/3 of the world, and it's basically related to the phenomenon of deindustrialization. So this work is being done by me and by Sandra Pereira, she is a PhD candidate that her advisor, I am her advisor, and here's the summary. The main problem is the deindustrialization. What to do with these spaces? They are huge industrial spaces that presently are in the middle of the major and even medium-sized, small-sized towns everywhere. And sometimes they are focus of a lot of environmental and social problems. So we are going to approach this main problem, what to do with this industrial heritage, which are the International Committee for the Conservation of Industrial Heritage Principles. There is since a long time, I think since the early 80s or something, an international committee dedicated to study these issues, but it was founded mainly by historians, and then architects and also engineers follow it, but it's mainly by historians, and sometimes there is it's not easy to influence public policy makers and public policies on this. And then I'm going to show you our research. It's an ongoing research. It's at a very early stage. We are trying to understand what municipalities, first in Portugal, and then we want to extend to other countries. I already had a student trying to do this for Andalusia in Spain. What are municipalities doing relating to their industrial heritage that is abandoned? Is there any public policies for that? What are their main ideas? They want to reutilize these buildings, or they just want to tear everything down and build other things. So deindustrialization is a very known phenomena. Basically, I would say the first world economies or the more developed economies have passed more or less all of them, not always, but almost all of them, from an agrarian society that reaches such a level of productivity and output, then is able to free labor that goes after to industry. And then the same thing happens to industry, and we are basically a service economy. Portugal is presently basically a service economy, with a very important economic sector of tourism, more important than I think it should be, but it's what it is. And basically, that's the same case for any European, North America, even South America, Eastern Asia society. So we are basically service societies with a small industry and agrarian sector. Just to let you know, this is the structure of employment in Portugal. Until 1966, we were basically an agrarian economy. Then you can see the middle line, it's industry. And industry was growing very, very fast, especially from the Second World War onwards. And then it started declining basically in the 90s. I was born in very late, really very late 1982, almost 1983. And when I was a little boy, and maybe Carlos also remembers it, he's a little bit younger than I am, but not that much. When we were 10-year-old, 12-year-old, when we turned on the TV, there were always a factory shutting down. A textile factory in northern Portugal, or a cork plant in nearby Lisbon, or any kind of factory. Basically, we entered to a deindustrialization cycle, which is very linked to the reshaping of the world economic geography.
Carlos, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think your PowerPoint is not moving. You're speaking about the graphic, right?
Yes. And now?
Yes. Now we see it. Now you see it. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So you did not see this?
No.
And you did not see this?
No, I think no. The PowerPoint don't move. But okay, continue with last PowerPoint. Don't worry.
Okay, so this was the scheme of changing from agriculture to industry to services. Thank you for letting me know. And this is the graph on the Portuguese structure of employment by sector. And as I was saying, we had a deindustrialization process that began in the early 90s of the 20th century. So the problem is what to do with these huge industrial spaces. When I say huge, on your right, today it's another part of the city of Lisbon. You probably don't know. It was where the 1998 World Exhibition was built, but it was a very large industrial site. So that thing is solved, but it's a rare example. And our towns and cities all over the world have a huge industrial spaces that we have as a society to try to do their best use among the several principles. But before I approached it, I'm starting to make an historical background how people looked to these industrial places. So basically, it was only in the last 60. This quotation has already 10 years, so we have to add another 10 years. It's only basically in the last 60 years that industrial heritage has begun to figure in your consciousness, and especially in countries like the UK or the US. In Portugal, it's very, very, very more recent, and that's because cultural heritage in the 19th century, in the first half of the 20th century, in Portugal, I would say until the 1980s, 1990s, was always linked to medieval and early modern, medieval and earlier periods of history. In this picture, you see that the famous Tower of Belém in Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal, and you can see it had an industrial plant that it was uh, just turned down for the 1940 Portuguese exhibition in order to give space to the Tower of Belém. Of course, this is an extreme example, but just to see that industries were everywhere. They were nearby these old heritage sites, and sometimes the solution was just to wipe that out. So indeed, Europe, the desire to preserve the past was a consequence of industrialization, as industrialization was putting at risk early heritage sites, medieval, early modern, and so on. But now we are at a stage where some of these industrial heritage have already passed many years. And what should we do? And especially it's a very, very, and I have to underline this, a very large phenomenon. It's everywhere. You go everywhere, and there are a lot of ancient factories and other industrial heritage sites that are abandoned. So what we have to do? What can we do? Of course, there are some. I brought you this bridge, the Iron Bridge Gorge in England, because it's a World Heritage Site. I could have brought you the Eiffel Tower. Or if we are talking, for instance, in Portugal, Porto Dom Luís Bridge. There are some places that, for historical reasons, have just to be preserved. But we cannot preserve everything, and we cannot transform every industrial place in a museum, because that's another of the most common use. You have an ancient can industry in factory, and you build there a museum of can industry. You have an ancient mill, and you place there a museum on how to make bread, and you have an ancient court, and so on, so on, so on. But it's impossible because they are very large places. So what to do with this industrial heritage? As I was saying, these are some of the examples. The first and more common are actually for cultural use, but you cannot use all of them for cultural use. Just to say, on the right, you have a museum that there was a can industry factory. On the center, we have a library. It was a rice husk industry, but you cannot do this with everything. So TICI, the International Committee for for the Conservation of Industrial Heritage, has some guidelines. And the first one, it says that conservation of industrial heritage depends on the preserving functional integrity, and interventions to an industrial site should aim to maintain it as far as possible. And this example that I'm bringing you here, it's an industrial mill that today is the Faculty of Architecture in Évora, Portugal, where its integrity was almost 100% preserved, as you can see. It was abandoned in the early 1990s, and the university bought it, and today the classes are happening here. But preservation, another guideline is that preservation in situ should always be given priority consideration. Dismantling and relocating building or structure are only acceptable when the destruction of the site is required by overwhelming economic or social needs. And that's not always the case. I think it's missing here an image, but this is the public bank headquarters in Lisbon. It was a factory, a very large factory, and it was basically destroyed to do this very huge building. And the only thing it remains with this very tiny chimney here. And so the guidelines were not respected. So this was meant to have, let me see if you, okay, that's why the picture didn't appear. Carlos, what are you seeing now? It's an automobile workshop?
Yes, from BMW. We can see the image, yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to the point of what should we do with the majority of industrial spaces. So the guidelines tells you that the adaptation of industrial site to new use to ensure its conservation is usually acceptable, with the exception of special historical significant buildings. But it should have an area that interprets the former use. So here we have a very large automobile workshop in Lisbon, Portugal, in the capital city of Portugal. I knew this all my life. It was really, really huge. It had a bank agency inside it, and it went bankrupt in 1998. Today, it's a decathlon. As you can see, the majority of the architecture has been maintained. Moreover, and this is for me is very important, when you enter this decathlon shop, it's not a museum, it's not a cultural association, it's a decathlon shop. They have a small exhibition place. It could be much better, it could be much more impactful, but they have a small exhibition place where they tell the story, the history, not the story, the history of this building, of this previous use of this building, and its economic perspective, social perspective. It tells you how the workers used to live. You see this picture on your in the right, the bottom right. You see they have a football. They had a football club, and it's full. It's not a very large space, but it's a large enough space. It's full of they did a little bit of research and they put it. So it's possible to have a new use and, as the guidelines say, to uh, maintain memory and the history of the space. But why it is important not to just to tear everything down and continue to adapt an industrial building. First of all, it avoids wasting energy and contributes to sustainable development. How? I'm going to tell you. When you have these places, these are usually places that are, first of all, they are next to transports. They are very good endowed with transport facilities. Nearby a railroad, nearby a road. Second, they are very well endowed with basic infrastructures such as electricity, water supply, sewers. And when I say very large, they are endowed with things at an industrial scale. It means if you want to transform this, for instance, to habitation, to people starting living here, you have already a good part of the things that have to be built if you are doing everything new already built. Moreover, these buildings have very strong structures. They were thought usually to store very heavy, large machineries that vibrate a lot. So their structure is very strong, and that's why they are they live for decades, sometimes more than 100 years without falling down. So industrial heritage can also have an important role in the economic regeneration of decayed or declining areas. These pictures is from a General Motors factory that used to work in a very small place in southern Portugal called Ponte de Sor. It used to employ 700 people at its peak of a town that has no more than 9,000 inhabitants. So it has a huge impact. Moreover, the people who used to work here, they have benefits that they don't used to have, and they still don't have in nowadays working facilities, such as a permanent medical office opening 24 hours a day. The factory was always working. It had free shifts, nurturing services, all for free, a dental private insurance. I can tell you that I was the supervisor of master thesis on the social impact of this factory, and we did some interviews to former workers. And one of them showed me his teeth, and he said, "If I have teeth, I owe to these guys because I did not have the money. And today I work at the municipality of Ponte de Sor, and the public insurance does not cover me any dental plans. If it wasn't for this company, I would be toothless." So there is a project to try to reuse this industrial site in order to make it a congress area, technical work, centro de emprego, centro de formação. Carlos, help me here. I'm lacking the word. A training center, an industrial training center, And it also has a museum plan, a small museum plan, in order to maintain that link to its previous industrial use. You have to see that when this closed down, it was a major impact, and local populations want to see this place. It's a part of its identity, wants to see this place used again with a new use, with a new economic structure, and not reusing, not have to rebuild everything new. So, knowing these examples, we are now conducting interview on mayors and other top responsibles for several municipalities in Portugal. We already did to 5, but it's a very early work in order to understand things such as, if you are reusing these sites, what do you consider to be the advantages? If there is any kind of policies, especially development for them. What are the relations with local communities? Do they want to see this reuse, or do they just want to see a new thing over that place? You have to see that sometimes it could be the case, because some of these abandoned industrial sites are a focus of criminality. They are used for criminal activities. And the first results of these only 5 interviews, but we are going to produce more, is that the policymakers say that the preservation of historical memory is highly valued by local residents. You see here on your right, it's an industrial mill in Vendas Novas, Alentejo, Portugal, that is going to be transformed to a 70 apartment building. And this helps to preserve local identity in the face of phenomena such as gentrification. For instance, that this was answered by us, by the municipal director of urbanism in Almada, which is in the metropolitan area of Lisbon, and that is it's changing very fast due to tourism, and preserving that industrial memory, preserving that identity. You can reuse things without having a Starbucks in every corner. It also preserves unique architectural elements. Some of these buildings, not this one, but other of these buildings are was actually signed by very important Portuguese architects, such as Carlos do Amaral of the 20th century. And if you just put all these things down, you are losing these unique architectural elements. It also revitalizes abandoned areas with sanitation problems. I usually enter on these places. I actually entered on this one inside, and you cannot see. I'm used to see rats, and I'm used to see pigeons, and a lot of dirt, and sometimes homeless people living here, and sometimes toxicant people using drugs here. So this becomes a very decadent area of cities, and because cities expanded very quickly, the once industrial neighborhoods that were at outside the boundaries of the city are now actually very near the center of the cities. So it's a way to revitalize these areas. It prevents the production of waste caused by demolition. When you demolish a building like this, not only you have to bring new materials for new building, and that is one of the most polluting sector of the planet. Is construction. I don't know if you know, but also you have to pay and put the waste somewhere. So reuse prevents all of this. And if the building is in good condition, it is financially less costly. And it was the case of this building here. It was put it for sale, and the new owner, instead when he made the math to understand what he was going to do, he realized that putting to demolish this, it was actually costly than to reuse this building. It was actually the cost of demolition, as I was saying, that prevented the sale of this mill. So now it's going to house 70 units in this current city center. It's within the rehabilitation urban areas of Portugal. It has a huge tax exemptions. It is possible to build as high as this factory has in height. Otherwise, if it was going to be demolished, the new municipal plan of building only would allow to build three-star buildings. Therefore, it didn't have economy de scale. It didn't have scale economy it had less scale economy. There is no need for new electrical power installation. There will be a reinforcement, but it's no need to have to build a new electrical power nearby to give electricity because it's already there. It is a very robust construction. There will be minimal changes at the main structure. It has a strong connection with local identity. Of course, when I visit these places, I always go to the restaurant nearby or try to talk to people, and I ask people, what is that place? Why is there, and what do they think about it? And believe me, there is a very low local identity, and there will be a space that is going to tell the story, the history of this industry here. It was proposed to the construction and it accepted, not only with a few panels, but also with oral testimonies from ancient workers, with some material culture, such as their firm cards, the products that were sold here, etc., etc., etc. This is the place I was talking earlier in Ponte de Sur. So it has a museum space. I'm sorry, this is in Portugal. A museum space in one of its centers, and basically this is what we are doing to try to understand how to reuse industrial abandoned sites in a 21st century world where there is a huge problem of environmental problem. And this is a case, I think, of kind of a circular economy. So we are reusing continuously, of course, not 100%, but a large part of it for new social uses, places that are presently abandoned and don't need to be demolished at all. And I don't know if you saw everything. I'm not used to this application, but thank you very much. And that's
Don't worry, Carlos. Don't worry. I will see it. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. I also have some questions here that I'm gonna take I'm gonna wait for the end. Some questions about policy challenges. I have also a question about community engagement. But we let this the community. The community it's really involved, or is just a secondary agent. But I think we can use this to launch our debate later. Thank you very much, Professor Carlos. Now, if you allow me, we go to our third presentation. It's Leonor. After Leonor, it will be Barbara, and after Barbara, we're gonna have a few minutes for discussion. So, Leonor Salguinho Ferreira is a PhD student in modern history of the Faculty of Arts of the University of Coimbra, where she completed her master's degree in history, specializing in the modern era in July of 2023, and her bachelor degree in history with a minor in European studies. Her studies focus on the women's history, socioeconomic history, and rural history, topics that have dictated her scientific production in recent years, having been present at various national and international scientific exhibitions and debate events. She was FCT Scientific Initiation Scholarship holder in a project developed at the Center for Center from Research in Coimbra, a center where she had been a collaborating researcher since 2021. She was a research fellow for the RECEID project, found by the RC Starting Council. She is currently a guest assistant at the Faculty of Letters and Arts and a FCT Doctor Fellow, I think, from the last year. So our presentation is entitled Learning with the Past to Shape the Future, Sustainability and the Teaching of History. Thank you very much, Eleanor.
Hello, thank you very much. Please tell me if you can see my screen. Is it
Yes,
fully showing?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Should I put it in presentation or just?
As you prefer.
Okay.
As you see best.
Okay. Is it sharing like full screen or not?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to thank everyone who is participating and also my colleagues who have presented and are still presenting. In particular, I'd like to thank Carlos for the invitation, as I am delighted to be here. My communication entitled Learning with the Past to Shape the Future, Sustainability and the Teaching of History will be strongly based on my experience both as a student and as a young teacher and researcher in Portuguese higher education. I will be reflecting on the presence of topics such as environmentalism and sustainability in the curricula of history degrees and showing ways in which a new generation of educators and researchers can aim to sensitize their students and pupils to these topics through the study of history. Is it changing the slide?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. Through my years as a university student in Portugal, which started in 2018 and continued to this day, sustainability has been absent from the curricula. Be it during the bachelor's degree or the master's or even the PhD, sustainability was not included, not in bibliography, not during class, not in impromptu reflections during or after class. The focus was on other subjects considered of major importance: politics, economics, societal structure, war, and exploitation, for example. The maiming of environment, particularly that of South America and Africa by European colonization, has always been presented as a fact, discussing the trade and governance of the colonies extensively, yet failed to explore the ecological ramifications of monocultural plantations, deforestation, or species extinctions tied to European intervention. There was never an effort to create a basis for critical thinking, a basis to understand the roots of excessive exploitation and destruction of natural resources happening to this day. In conversation with other colleagues, it was established that in our understanding, it wasn't so much a lack of care of actual importance of the subject of environmentalism or sustainability, but in turn the indisputable importance of any other subject. The courses were structured around great prisms, great tendencies, great men, great happenings, and not so much in constructing the ability to critically analyze the changes between the world of then and the world of now. As young researchers and professors, it is crucial for our generation to establish how to include these topics into the curricula we teach. However, it can be challenging to do so, particularly regarding earlier periods, such as the medieval and the early modern eras. While this is a more difficult topic to exploit in these timeframes, many new publications and projects have been valued in the past few years for their strict connections to sustainability. In this regard, I brought in some examples, such as the Green Heritage Project, more centered on archaeology and cultural heritage. The aim of this project is exactly to create a bridge between sustainability and cultural and archaeological heritage and new generations, having even created an educational server in the popular game Minecraft to do so. Another project of relevance is ReSeed, an ERC-funded project here in the University of Coimbra that strives to comprehend the change in agricultural landscapes and consumption before and after the introduction of new plants in the old continent. For almost a year, I integrated ReSeed's research team and focused my research on women's presence in agrarian work and how it changed through time and through the change in crops. But the age of sustainability in academia isn't just based on research projects, as we have seen in an uprise of publications regarding this precise topic. As two examples, I brought in these articles, one regarding labor history and connecting it to environmentalism and sustainability, a topic I am particularly interested in, and another regarding the history of a city, the city of Hull in England, and the waters that flooded it. These and other publications show that it is no longer in the sole interest of academia to study the people and the institutions, but also the way in which these connected to the environment in which they flourished. Thus, while academia has turned to environmentalism, constructing new and improved lenses with which it looks at history and human action, in most cases the teaching of history has continued to lay stagnant, not accompanying the developments and perspectives its researchers seem to establish. While it is true that higher education and research are deeply connected, it is clear that developments produced by research continue to be underutilized in teaching. New eras require new approaches. So it has been for many other topics, and so must be regarding the inclusion of sustainability in the teaching of history. In my optics, learning history has a double importance associated with the civic education of the pupils who learn. Reason why the topics approached in research and education have shifted in time, reflecting on the society we live in and that we want to live in. Thus, it must be comprehended as irrefutable the value of history in regards to educating towards environmentalism and sustainability as well. From my experience, both as a student and as a young researcher and teacher, one of the most important aspects of teaching towards sustainability is actually how hard it is, particularly regarding medieval and early modern periods. While researchers have made considerable and important contributions to these topics, as previously stated, in a classroom setting, it tends to be more difficult to educate students. Students need to feel engaged. They need to feel as if knowledge is theirs for the taking. This involves showing, not just telling. If we show students the difference between the then and the now, the roots of environmental destruction, the changes in the landscape, and the continuous maiming of environment that was started way back when, other than just telling them, it is possible to achieve the objective, educating towards sustainability, showing students how the past isn't repeating itself, but simply continuing its course, and how we can change this tendency. The easiest and most effective way I have found is through the usage of historical sources. As a researcher who focuses mostly on the early modern period, I will also focus my examples on this era. The first example I brought are drawings made by the naturalist Alexandre Rodrigues Ferreira during his expedition through the Amazonian rainforest during the later years of the 18th century. During this trip, he drew and described the flora, fauna, the agriculture, and the people that inhabited this enormous rainforest. The drawings, or some examples of them that I have brought, intend to show the diversity of wildlife, showing birds, mammals, fish, and insects, sometimes in action, as is this bird who's feeding. Showing the drawings of Alexandre Rodrigues Ferreira in class has become a staple for me, most importantly when in contact with Brazilian students, particularly common in the University of Coimbra. These students have, in many occasions, identified the species presented in the drawings and actually have also told some stories about legends with these animals, which are particularly interesting. Meant to create knowledge for a colonial machine, the drawings made with considerable rigor and beauty now serve a new purpose, to show how important it is to preserve the rich context of the Amazonian rainforest, creating a debate regarding its continuous destruction. Teaching about Portuguese or European colonialism in the four corners of the world can, in this sense and in various ways, be used to understand the abusive exploitation of resources, leading to the extinction of species, the depletion of resources, and the destruction, of ecosystems, trends that were evident in the past, but above all in the present. These and other sources can be vital for the debate regarding the preservation of wildlife, be it flora or fauna, what we have seen happen to it in the past and present, and what we can do to change and protect it in the future. It is possible, however, to show the changes in biodiversity, particularly in agrarian systems, with other sources. Here I present two documents written in different settings and periods. The first, up top, was produced in the monastery of St. Anne in Viana do Castelo in 1621. The second was written by the overseer of a farm in the same district in 1869. In both, we can see references to agricultural crops, such as on the first one, grãos bicudos, or chickpeas or garbanzo beans, on the first image, and potatoes, batatas, and beans, feijões, on the second and third images. While there's no specification in regards to what type of bean or potato, it is evident that new and old crops became part of the agrarian setting in Europe throughout time, creeping their way into the agrarian calendars and the specifications of the labor contingents, in this case, of northwestern Portugal. What we see when we show students these sources, particularly in comparison, is the proliferating presence of new crops, such as potatoes, maize corn, and American beans, in the European agrarian system. This big mutation in agrarian biodiversity shaped the rates of production and consumption, leaving old plants, which used to be central in food systems, to be cultivated in small quantities, focused on the payment of duties or specific cultural foods. The mutations regarding these consumable plants changed European agrarian landscapes, but also the way in which these populations ate, regulated their work, and thus live. Land use was changed, making it easier for the soil to become depleted, and new species of animals and insects were introduced, often invasive and predatory to local species, altering the balance of ecosystems. The impacts have been manifold, and it is necessary to study and understand them, preferably opting for an interdisciplinary approach. In any of its fields and contexts, the teaching of history has an obligation to educate its students in civic matters. In the context of this webinar, teaching for sustainability and environmentalism is particularly relevant. It is therefore immensely important to create a foundation of critical thinking based on historical knowledge and historiographical evidence. While historical research has opened up to topics related to sustainability and environmentalism, the same is not evident in higher education curricula, which remain focused on major events and famous figures. At this point, a thematic and theoretical update of the content taught is necessary, with a view to including awareness for environmental preservation and sustainability. It is therefore vital to engage students in research, connecting them with sources beyond simply teaching them about general contexts. It is necessary to show them firsthand, as much as possible, the impact of environmental changes, not only on biodiversity, but on human life itself. To this end, it is essential to connect research even more closely to higher education, linking them and highlighting the importance of analyzing diverse sources to obtain results that are as reliable as possible. In the words of Paulo Freire, if education alone cannot transform society, without it society cannot change either. It is through education that the future is built, and the teaching of history in all its forms is a fundamental part of this process. Thank you very much. I just have the references for the images I used. I think I was a bit short on time, was quite quick, but I hope I was self-explanatory.
Don't worry, Leonor. Don't worry. It was great. Thank you very much. If you are short on time, don't worry. You're gonna have more time for debate, so the questions will arrive, and you can take any doubt that we have. Thank you very much, Leonor. So we're gonna pass for our last presentation of the day, Barbara Frigione. Our presentation is entitled "Cultivating Change: How the PhD in Sustainability Development and Climate Change Shaped My Research Journey." Barbara is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Brescia and collaborator of the University Research and Documentation Center for the 2030 Sustainability Development Agenda. She combines her interdisciplinary background in engineering, architecture, and urban planning with studies in science communication to explore urban sustainability development and to local implementation of the UN 2030 agenda. Barbara, please, if you want to share something with us, please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Barbara.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, let's see if I'm able to share. Let me know if you can see the first slide of the presentation.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for Carlos for the invitation. So yes, I'm going to talk about how the PhD program in Sustainable Development and Climate Change shaped not only my research journey, but also the research journey of the many colleagues that attended it. And I'm really happy to be here today, also because, as you said, I work in the urban sustainable transition realm, and sustainability has been a huge interest of mine for many years. And in fact, to be honest, let's see, it's not changing. Okay. And in fact, to be honest, I can't even remember when this interest started. What I do know is that during my master in architectural engineering, I was really intense with my friends and my family about pushing them to use less and less single-use plastic objects. But it was also during those years that I discovered about the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in a course in urban and regional planning. And in that course, it was the only course that introduced me to the concept of sustainability. And it was thanks to that course and my master thesis that I realized that after the master, I wanted to focus on this topic. So when I was looking for a research fellowship, I was fortunate enough to find one at the University of Brescia on measuring the Sustainable Development Goals. What I did in that fellowship was understanding how to localize the global indicators of the 2030 Agenda, meaning how to adapt them to the regional and provincial and municipal level. And of course, during that fellowship, my interest in sustainability and sustainable development, and of course, climate change grew. Thanks also to my collaboration with a research center that you earlier introduced. So when I discovered about the existence of this new PhD program in Sustainable Development, Climate Change, it was just natural for me to try to apply for that, and I was fortunate enough to got a place in there. And this is what we are gonna talk about today: this new PhD program in Sustainable Development and Climate Change. But how this PhD was born? Well, between 2019 and 2021, a small group of academics and professors of this university in Pavia called IUSS Pavia started thinking about how universities could address climate change and sustainable development in a PhD program, and how they could promote the ability of future generations to understand not only the evolution of the climate, but to understand how to provide new solutions to mitigate climate change and to adapt to it. And while posing these questions, they did realize that they had to address three main challenges. One challenge to build this kind of PhD program was scientific, meaning that they wanted to address with this PhD both sustainability, sustainable development, and climate change, because as you know, they are deeply interrelated. And the second challenge was academics. So they wanted this new PhD program to support research across disciplines, so meaning multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary collaboration. And since they wanted to do all these new things, the third challenge, that was the most important one, was institutional, because including all these things meant that they had to design a new PhD model in the educational system. So between 2019 to 2021, they brainstormed about this, and they also, of course, brainstormed it with the Ministry of Education, and in 2021 they published the call, so I applied for that, and what they realized was a PhD program that was multidisciplinary, meaning that they organized it in 6 curricula. As you can see in this slide, there were each curricula has a different, of course, color just to be recognizable, but we do have a curriculum on Earth system and environment, on socioeconomic risks and impacts, on technology and territory, on theories, institutions and culture, on agriculture and forestry, and on health and ecosystem. So as you can see, this kind of PhD tried to merge and to put together STEMs as well as social sciences. And let's see if I can change it. Okay, it's working. And each curriculum offers and is still offering a wide range of scholarship, and each curriculum and each scholarship required different background. I give you just an example. My curriculum, the curriculum for which I applied, was technology and territory, mainly STEM. But if you see the PhD's backgrounds within this curriculum are, yes, from food engineering and engineering, but also from urban planning and architecture, and of course also building engineering and architecture, physics and chemistry, and with the scholarship, another thing that they tried to do was to link the research topic with the SDGs. So each scholarship was linked with specific SDGs. This scholarship that you can see is mine, the one for which I applied. And you can see that the reference SDGs for this kind of scholarship were Goal 11 and Goal which is about sustainable cities and communities, and Goal 13 about climate action. But how was this PhD organized? So it was the first inter-university PhD program in Italy, the very first national PhD. Inter-university means that it was not a PhD localized in one university, but it included 30 universities. So when I started, there were 30 partners universities, and now we have more than 57. When I started, the PhD students were 105, and now there are more than 300, and now they are involving many public institutions and many private institutions. So the novelty also of this PhD, besides trying to integrate sustainability, sustainable development and climate change in a PhD program, and besides trying to integrate both STEM and social sciences, it was that it was a network of universities and public institutions. And how did it work? How this network works? So all PhDs are enrolled in one university, which is the IUSS University, which is the one in which the brainstorm about this new PhD program started. So the PhD students are enrolled in here, but they carry out research activities in a host university. My host university, for instance, was the university in Brescia. And all these PhD students have to collaborate within the PhD SDC network. Why I say have to? Because this PhD is organized in 3 different levels of education: an horizontal one, a vertical one, and a focused one. The horizontal one is represented by the multidisciplinary events in which the students from all the curricula join together in 2, 3, 5 days events. And in these events, they have to collaborate. They have to solve problems, research questions that need multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary collaboration. And then there is the vertical level, which is represented by another kind of events, which are the curriculum events, in which the PhD students within a single curriculum meet together online or in person to discuss and learn about tools and topics that are related to their specific curriculum. And then, of course, as in any other PhD program, there are also thematic and methodological courses offered by the host universities. What is interesting is that if a university offers a course to the PhD student, which is hosted by the university itself, that same course is also offered to all the PhD students of the PhD program network. And just to give you an example of how these kind of events, the multidisciplinary events and the curriculum events were organized. So this was my very first multidisciplinary event, and it was about the latest IPCC report, because we don't have to give it for granted that people that just went into a PhD know about the IPCC report. So what we had to do was that, so 5 months before the event in person, we PhD students, 100 of PhD students, were divided into groups. And each group had to analyze a chapter of the new IPCC report. So, as you can see, we had to analyze chapter 5, and my group was composed by people from many different CUs. The orange one are technology and territory, but then there is also the pink one, the health system, and the blue one about culture and institutions, and the 2 green ones that are about forestry and biodiversity. We have to do a content analysis, we have to do a SWOT analysis, and then during the event, the in-person event, we had to present our work to all our colleagues. And what was interesting about this working group was trying to collaborate with other researchers from different backgrounds, and which is paramount to address climate change and sustainability issues. And as you know, it's not always easy. What was also interesting about this kind of event is that, of course, we also followed many different seminars, also offered by expert in the IPCC report, so exponent of the IPCC process. And then there were other MD events on the SDGs and still focused on working together, collaborating together. And then this year, I also made my very first multidisciplinary event as a mentor. And in this event, students had to address the urgent question, how can we become climate neutral? So students were, again, divided into groups. And my group had to address the specific challenge of how can cities go net zero. And these students that you see in this picture came from a variety of background and tried really hard to do mind maps and to try to put together all the different knowledge they had thanks to their different background, and they tried to answer these complex questions. And then we have, I can show you some example of the curriculum events. They are also mandatory as well as the multidisciplinary events. And as you can see, every curriculum organizes its own. They can be focused on general topics that are useful for younger researchers, such as literature review, how to conduct a literature review, but they can also focus on specific topic, as you can see, the blue one on the bottom right, which was from the curriculum Theories, Institutions and Culture, which was about climate imperative and democracy's metamorphosis, a challenge for the future. And also in this kind of events, there were both seminars and workshops to make young researchers work together and share their different perspectives. So long story short, I presented this PhD program today because I think it's really a powerful example on how university curricula can introduce the topic of sustainable development and climate change, and this kind of PhD was able to do that. It brought together sustainability and climate change and within different curricula, and it also tried to link each PhD research topic to a specific SDG. And it also encouraged young researchers to break disciplinary silos through mandatory multidisciplinary and curriculum events. And it tried hardly tried to support both STEM and social sciences and humanities, as both are essential to tackle these challenges we have today. Of course, it also highlighted some challenges, such as that academic silos still make collaboration between fields difficult. And I saw it comparing the PhD program in which I was enrolled and the PhD program which was held at my host university. My PhD program gave us a broader perspective, whereas my university, hosting university PhD program was more focused on engineering disciplines. And so when someone is not exposed to a variety of experts and different fields, it is difficult to think out the box. And of course, this kind of PhD also highlighted the fact that fostering sustainability and climate change across disciplines is time and research intensive. It needed a lot of time from our coordinator and a lot of leading and coordination skills. Also because, yes, there are more than 50 universities, but it's not easy to keep them together and to keep them all on the same page. A short opinion from me as a student, but it is an opinion that it comes also from my fellow PhD colleagues. This PhD really helped us thinking outside our box, because it exposed us to many experts and peers from different disciplines. So it exposed us to many different perspectives and methodologies. And this helped us addressing our research topic with a broader perspective, looking at it, focusing, analyzing it, thinking that it was one tiny issue within a broader net and complex net in which things are interconnected and influence each other. And in doing so, it also trained us to communicate our research to audiences outside our discipline. And of course, it strengthened our science communication skill. So university can merge sustainability and climate change into the curriculum. Of course, it's not an easy task. It can merge STEM and social sciences and humanities. Still, what we need is someone that wants to move in that direction. So thank you so much. You can see, if you're interested in understanding better this PhD program, here you can scan the QR code. And if you have any questions, I'm here, or you can write me at my email address. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. Thank you to all. Thank you to Mirai, Carlos, Leonor, and Barbara for all these very important and very excellent thoughts that you give us today, different perspectives, different ways to see the role of universities, the role of knowledge, the role of curriculum, the role of the universities in this question of sustainability. I think now we can open to debate. I have a few questions here to each of you, and more generical questions to everyone. But please, I ask to the public, if you have some question, you can simply ask to our guests, or write on chat and I produce him. I don't know if someone want to be the first to ask something. If not, I can start until we wait for other colleagues. So I like to start with Mirai. But I like very much about this idea of the practical implementation, and more than that, beyond the classroom. It was very good insights. Is the thing that I like to study mainly for other periods, historical periods. But I like to ask you a question. It's how do your students apply these bio-inspired mindsets after graduation? Have you seen this approach influencing their professional, practical, or career choices? Mirai.
Actually, I don't think so. They are not allowed to employ those approaches in industry. But what I want to believe is they had a mindset about that because of the engagement with nature and how they can implement it in a smart way, like a win-win strategies, or doing something profitable yet sustainable things to convince the industry and investors, because it's an engagement which is not like a mandatory thing, not like eco-anxietal concern, the engagement with a deeper level. That's why I'm talking about biophilia rather than bio-inspiration, because if you love something, you feel like you need to care about it. So bio-inspiration is a bit more superficial in the industry. It's used for greenwashing, and it's used for marketing campaigns. So I'm not in that place, but I'm trying to find a way to implement it in the curriculum to make the students embrace it as a designer, to inject it into their work. But also we have some social design issues, social innovation projects, which the graduates are employed in those kinds of things right now, because the tangible production is not that high trend right now. It's much more likely doing something intangible. So most of the graduates are now employed in these social innovation projects like policy making and creating systems, service product system designs. I think it can help them to care about some environmental issues in those participatory design and community-focused design projects. They can get help from this education. I believe so, and I want to believe that.
Thank you, Mirai. Thank you very much. Someone want to make questions to our guests? Please, I hear someone. If you want to make the question directly, you can do it. So don't worry, I continue. So Carlos, I like very much your presentation. A few years ago, I studied the question of heritage, mainly the Francis convents. It is totally different from the industrial heritage that we have, and you know so well. So we have a very different perspective, but a good insight where is the heritage and how you deal with that. We have convents that are mainly belong to the state, the Portuguese state, and a lot of them are literally on the ground. They fall. A lot of them literally fall, and we have other ones that can be saved because you have external some company, someone literally with money that go buy it and restore it, and in that case they do mainly hotels. Obviously with rules. They need to maintain the building, they need to maintain the nature of the building, they need to maintain a few aspects of the historical preservation. So my question is about the policy challenges, because what I see in this project is that we cannot count with a lot of times with public money to save these infrastructures. A lot of times we cannot count on them. They are under the influence, they are protected by the state, they belong to them, okay? But we cannot count with them to put something else on this deal. So a lot of times we need to wait for someone or some company or whatever who come and give some light, some new life to this. So what do you think are the main obstacles in Portuguese public policy when it comes to repurposing industrial heritage? The state is an obstacle, is not an obstacle. He allow other players to intervene and to do something when the state cannot do it, or we don't have this type of state or this type of public politics.
Well, we don't have. I think the state is neutral because there is not, as far as we know, and as far as all the people we are interviewing, who are policymakers, tell us there are not specific public policies to industrial sites. What they apply, it's general policies for urban rehabilitation. And if the industrial site is within public urban rehabilitation area, it does have some kinds of support. I don't know if you know, but there is something called ARU, Área de Reabilitação Urbana, Urban Rehabilitation Area, where in order to do rehabilitation of any kind of building, you have some tax exemption, and you have credit facility. Credit, it's easier, but that's not specifically aimed at industrial sites. Therefore, if you have an industrial site that is 19th century, early 20th century, within the urban rehabilitation area, it can have that support. But if you have a more recent one, which is outside the urban rehabilitation area, you don't have any type of support. What we are our aim in the end is to write a policy brief on this and to say to policymakers, please do a specific policy for these spaces because if it was, in some cases they are covered because the cities have grown and they are in the center. In many other cases, they are not. And let me add you something. Many of them were convents because there is a match between the extinction of religious orders and the first stages of industrialization. Robinson Factory in Porto Alegre was St. Francis Convent. So it was a convent, then it was a factory, and now it's a ruin. That's how it is. 7 hectare ruin in the middle of the city. And what I think the state should do is to facilitate to a private investment, because it's impossible, as you say, to the state to have money. And actually, it was what they did with the convents, as you know. They became industry because they were sold in the 19th century, some of them, and to make laws that that are not very strict, because if it's very strict, public investment will not happen, but that preserves some of its architecture, and for the promoter, it's going to be useful. I think I really believe this, because it's going to have the population on his side. And if it's on his side, he's not going to have a demonstration against that project. And also, I think that the buyer, the private buyer, if you are doing, for instance, an habitual headquarters or even an hotel, that history provides a value added to the building. At least I believe so.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you very much. We can have a few minutes for other questions if someone wants to add something.
I have a question.
Yes. Yes, we can hear.
One of the speakers that spoke on the industrialization to rescue public policy perspective for industrial heritage in Portugal.
Yes,
So,
yes, Carlos.
Okay, my question is, how can public policy respond to the challenges of reusing industrial heritage as part of urban regional regeneration, cultural identity, and tourism in Portugal?
I think that question, I didn't hear very well because the connection is a little bit bad. Rufai, you know, Rufai was a very known Moroccan goalkeeper. I don't know if you're from Morocco. Peter Rufai from SC Farense. But I think that the answer is the same I give Carlos, because I didn't listen very well to your question, but I think you're asking how can the state promote this. I think the state can promote this by giving tax incentives, knowing that this is a very important part of reusing materials, and to prevent that, make some restrictions to the use, but not very strict. So to have a balance between what the private investor can do without doing everything he wants to, because he could just demolish it, but also giving him space. And actually, one thing that I didn't say, differently to convents and churches and castles, the international guidelines on industrial heritage do admit changes. They are not as strict as if it was a 14th century monastery. So you can change some things if you respect the majority of the history. So I think especially a tax and some incentives for industry, the same that they are within urban rehabilitation areas, but for all industrial sites. But you can write me if you want to, Rufai.
Okay.
Because I didn't listen very well. I don't know if I'm answering. You can write me. You ask Carlos, or you can Google me and you write me, and I'm very happy to answer to you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Thank
Rufai.
you, Rufai.
Any other question to our guests? Can I ask one question to Leonor? Because Leonor has been a very good position. Leonor was professor at Coimbra, was student at Coimbra, and now is a professor in a very short time. So a lot of professors that were your professor are now your colleagues, and you learn through a curriculum, and now you are doing the curriculum in that institution. You prepare your own curriculum for your syllabus, obviously. So what concrete strategies would you recommend for integrating sustainability themes into history curricula without compromising historical rigor or falling into presentism? What strategies you use or you want to start to use? And what strategies you tell that someone who's gonna be in your situation, teaching history, how we can introduce this subject? Because you come from a bachelor and a master who don't have a lot of things, and I think we can agree on that, because I passed for the same thing. I do my bachelor way a few years ago, and I don't have the same thing. I don't have these disciplines. I don't have these insights. So, but what you can do different now?
Thank you. It was a very interesting commentary regarding my professors who are now my colleagues. You are included. You were my professor and you're now my colleague as well. But I think that there needs to be a big update. In every single way there could be an update. I think at least the curricula I went through is in many ways out of date in almost every sense of it. Politically, economically, all of these, most things are out of date. And it's the same thing with environmentalism and sustainability. I think it's the same mentality. We need to introduce it. I don't think that new topics of analysis in historiography need to be because you spoke of presentism, and that is something that we hear a lot of, particularly in social history, which is what I do most. I have, in many occasions where I've spoken about my research, been asked, what is the importance of women's history? They were just women. It's fine. Anyone can do that. And I think it's the same perspective. Because throughout time, so from the 20th century, we saw people create new ways to look at history, and women's history was one of them. We didn't have women's history before the 1980s or 70s because women weren't in this environment. And I think it's the same thing regarding environmentalism and sustainability. It's a new lens to look at time and to look at human action. And so I think it needs to go through there. And clearly research has already done that. There isn't a problem with looking at environment. There isn't a problem. For example, those articles I brought, particularly that of the history of the city of Hull is very interesting. At least I think it's very interesting because it connects the history of a city and the history of the people of that city with the water. The main character, let's say like that, of research is the water that is in the city and not so much its people. So it's a new perspective. What I think that we can do as young teachers really is adapt. Honestly, it's adapt and bring our students to other lenses. Because we are conducting the classroom, we are the ones stating what we are going to learn there. I don't particularly think we should ignore the great prisms and the great men and the great people and politicians and all of that, but I think that there are lenses that we can put in front of our students. And we don't have to say that we all have to do those challenges like zero trash or whatever. We don't need to do that with our students. We just need to show them this is what has happened to environment. This is what keeps happening, because there's this idea that what happened in the past stayed in the past, and I don't believe that at all. We don't see that, and particularly environmental speaking, is we see that the destruction of environment that happened before in 18th century, 17th, 15th, it's still happening. It's still happening. And so I think that it's mostly we need to establish lenses and ways to analyze. We don't need to say this is what's happening here and here and here, but if we show them, I'm very glad I showed you those drawings, because in classes I have a lot of Brazilian students, and so the drawings are of the Amazonian rainforest in Brazil, and they have actually said, I have never seen that animal in my life. I don't think that exists anymore. And it has been the case. It went extinct in the meanwhile. So we do see that happening. And sometimes that's why I believe in using historical sources, because it is very easy to see when we show them more than when we tell them. I don't know if I answered completely, but basically I think we need to update and have a more hands-on approach.
Yes, thank you, Leonor. Carlos, do you want to make a question or just a comment?
No, it's just a comment to underline what Leonor said, because I totally agree with her. And I just want to add to say that, first of all, environmental history, it has already some path in some universities around Europe, and in some in Portugal. Actually, I think last week there was a position in the new University of Lisbon for environmental historian. This was the position was environmental historian. The thing is that in some universities the curriculum is still very focused on political issues, I think. So our job is, if we ever have the luck or the bad luck, I think the luck, but some people say the bad luck, to be at a permanent position, we have to fight to change the curriculum. I think it's this. And to put all these things that Leonor said, I'm 100% in line with her. Thank you very much, Leonor.
Thank you, Carlos.
So we are our webinar is a little bit longer. I like to just finish with a question for our other guests, Barbara, and we can finish with this. So Barbara, what aspects of your PhD that you show us so well, very descriptive? Indeed, we stay with a lot of focus on that. What aspects of your PhD program were most transformative in shaping your approach to sustainability? Because they have that importance. And what would you recommend to other doctoral programs that we start to see for a few years in Europe? We see it in Portugal, we see it in Spain, we see it in other countries.
The one thing that I appreciated most were the multidisciplinary events, because in those events, thanks to those events, I realized how my research topic was connected to many other research topics. My research topic was about integrating urban planning and energy planning. And during my research, I moved to the topic of collective energy initiatives, that if I just say collective energy initiatives, somebody can think that they are a social movement, so something that is just in the social realm. However, this kind of PhD helped me to integrate this social realm to the more technological realm, the more engineering realm, and the governance realm. So at the end, in my research was about the energy system from the technological point of view, the urban planning system, and the social system of this energy movement. And this is something that I think PhD program should do. They should spur their student to find out how their research is connected, what is the role of their research within the broader realm of sustainable development and of climate change within their country, within their region, but also internationally speaking. Understanding why we are doing this research, but not just to say, okay, the aim of my research is blah, blah, blah. Really, what is the impact of your research? What real what in the real world your research can impact, which are the different disciplines that in the real world should be touched to be sure that your research has a real impact. This is what I think is the most important.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I think our session is now it's very long. So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you very much for our 4 guests, and thank you very much for everyone who are here and see our webinar. Again, we attempted to our social media to shift cost action site because we're going to publish something about this webinar, and this webinar going to be available because it is recorded, available on the site. So once again, thank you very much. I thank you everyone. It was very interesting approaches and topics that now let us reflect and prepare other future talks or webinars or other type of activities. Thank you very much. Have a good day. And again,
Thank you very
your
much.
participation was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.